Let's look at the problem of flipping two coins and the related probabilities. So if I'm going to flip two coins, let's suppose they're different coins, and I'm going to flip a quarter and I'm going to flip a nickel. Couple ways to analyze this. If I look at the quarter first, well, it could come out with a head and the nickel could come out with a head. The quarter could have been a tail and the nickel still could be a head. Or the quarter could have been a head and the nickel could be a tail, and the quarter could be a tail and the nickel could also be a tail. So it looks kind of like the truth tables we looked at before. Another way to look at that would be to think about a tree. So we have some point in reality and we flip that quarter and reality splits into two parts. For the quarter, one universe, we got a head, the other universe, we got a tail. After flipping the quarter, we flip the nickel, and the nickel could be a head or a tail, so we split again into the possibilities. And that universe where we get a tail on the quarter flips for the nickel, and that splits again into either a head or a tail. And so following the tree through here, I could get a head and a head, or a head and a tail. I could get a tail and a head, or a tail followed by a tail. So tracing through that tree, I can see I get the following outcomes. Head, 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 tail, tail, head, or tail, tail. So there's many ways to try and organize and keep track of the number of things that can happen. All right, so what are the probabilities here? Well, when I flip a coin, I have a couple of beliefs about that coin. One is that a head or a tail, these are equally likely events. Another belief I have when I flip two coins is that one coin does not affect the other. Meaning, when I got this head here, flipping the quarter, that has no effect on what's going to happen with the nickel. I flipped the nickel and it could be a head or a tail. It doesn't matter that I got a head for the quarter. And this, when I move from one event to another, that one event does not affect another event. That's the idea called independence. So since I have independence here and the heads or tails for either coin are equally likely, then each of these end results here are equally likely. So I have 4 outcomes, so each must have a 1/4 chance of happening. Another way to think about it is at any point on these branches, to get a head for the quarter, there's a 1/2 chance there of a head. There's also a 1/2 chance for a tail. On this branch here, to get a head, there's still a 1/2 chance. And when we follow events through a tree like this, we end up multiplying. 1/2 times 1/2 is a quarter. So there's a couple ways to think about why the probability ought to be a quarter for each of these. And then I can answer lots of questions like, what is the probability of flipping two coins and getting two heads? And when I look at my tree here, I can see that that only happens in one of the possible 4 outcomes. So there's a 1 in 4 chance of that happening. What's the probability of, again, sticking with this situation where we're flipping two coins, that I get one head? Well, there's a couple of ways that could happen. When I have an error up here, this one should have been a head tail, excuse me. It could have been a head on the first coin or a head on the second coin with a tail on the other coin. So there's 2 possible ways I can get only one head. I'm thinking this is only one head. So there's 2 ways that can happen out of 4 equally likely ways. So there's a 1/2 or 50% probability that that can happen. What's the probability that I flip 2 coins and I get 0 heads? Looking at the results here, 0 heads would be 2 tails. There's only one way that can happen. So that would have a 1 in 4 probability of happening. So I have 4 different outcomes here. Each, I believe, is equally likely, so they have a 1 in 4th possibility of happening. Careful here, just because I stated an event I'm looking for, it doesn't mean it's a simple event. So this one right here, the middle one, was a compound event. It was made up of 2 simple events of getting a head first and a tail second, or getting a tail first and a head second. Each of those led to 1 head.